The first time I realized my family could betray me, it wasn't subtle. It was the sound of glass breaking in the dead of night. My name is Evelyn Marlowe, and I had always thought the Marlowe estate, the sprawling mansion with its shadowed halls and antique clocks, was my sanctuary. That illusion shattered the moment my sister, Vivian, smiled at me with a kind of calculated cruelty I had never seen before. It all started at the reading of my grandmother's will. The library smelled of old leather and polished wood, the air heavy with dust and expectation. I had always been the quiet one, the observer, tucked into the shadows while Vivian, my golden sister, soaked up every beam of attention. But that day, the world tilted. My grandmother had left everything, her estate, her art collection, her private archives, to me. Vivian? Nothing. Her laugh was low, a sound designed to unsettle, a sound that revealed what I already suspected: love had never been their motive. Their love was an alibi. They didn't want what was right, they wanted obedience, a performance. And suddenly, I realized that I was about to be cast as the villain in a story I hadn't even auditioned for. 2 weeks later, I returned to my studio, the attic room my grandmother had once called my sanctuary. The door was slightly ajar. I stepped inside and froze. Every canvas I had been working on was ruined, smeared paint, torn paper, shards of glass glittering like malicious stars. In the center, the portrait of my grandmother, which I had been restoring for months, hung slashed, her eyes accusing me from the torn canvas. And there she was, Vivian. She leaned against the wall, holding an empty wine bottle, calm, collected, terrifyingly patient. "You were supposed to break," she said softly. "You were supposed to scream, to lose control, to give them what they wanted. You were supposed to prove you were unstable." I didn't move. I didn't speak. I let her mistake my silence for fear. That night, she called the police, claiming I had attacked her. Officers arrived. I let them see the destruction, let them see the chaos, and let them assume I was guilty. But I had a plan. I had recorded her plotting, her threats, her confession. I had evidence, calm, precise, undeniable. I breathed slowly, letting the adrenaline settle. This was no longer about fear. This was strategy. Every detail mattered, the timing, the perception, the narrative. If I lost control, if I screamed, they would win. But if I remained calm, observed, and collected, I could turn the trap back on them. As I sat on the edge of the shattered easel, I recalled something my grandmother had written in her private journal: "Trust no performance. Observe the truth behind every smile. Survival belongs to those who see what others cannot." I had seen it then, the real faces behind the masks. My sister's cruelty, my parents' practiced grief, the way they had trained me all my life to be the obedient daughter, the scapegoat. I realized something chilling: my family's loyalty wasn't love, it was investment. And I had become the asset they intended to manipulate, to control, to destroy. But I wasn't going to play my role. Not anymore. I pressed my hand against the cold recorder in my pocket. My heartbeat slowed. My mind sharpened. I would not scream. I would not rage. I would become the eye of the storm, the calm in the chaos, the one who sees while everyone else performs. That night, as the wind rattled the attic window and the broken portrait stared at me, I made a vow: if they wanted war, I would give them a war they could never win. They underestimated me. They had counted on my fear. But fear was a tool I refused to hand over. I was ready. And I would survive. The courtroom smelled of polished oak and intimidation, a space designed to make every heartbeat echo like a confession. I stood at the defense table, calm, collected, hiding the recorder under my sleeve. Vivian, my sister, sat opposite me, radiating confidence, a predator wearing the mask of civility. Behind her, our parents sat like marionettes, perfectly choreographed, every gasp, every tear timed for maximum effect. The judge entered, a tall man with a face carved from stone. He glanced at the room, then at me. The tension was a living thing, pressing down on my shoulders, but I didn't flinch. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind, every possible misstep, every lie, every desperate glance Vivian might throw. I would not give her the satisfaction of seeing me crack. Vivian rose first. Her words were deliberate, precise. She painted a picture of me as unhinged, dangerous, incapable of managing the inheritance, unstable. She whispered of late-night outbursts, financial recklessness, hallucinations she claimed to have seen me experience. She spoke with the smooth authority of someone who had rehearsed betrayal for decades. And yet, as she spoke, I felt no fear. Only clarity. This was the trap, and I was ready to turn it inside out. When she paused for effect, letting the courtroom hang on her every word, I pressed play on the recorder hidden in my sleeve. Vivian's voice filled the room, calm, cruel, undeniable. She admitted every threat, every lie, every plan to frame me. She had destroyed the paintings, called the police, and tried to manipulate our parents into believing her false story. The room went silent. Our parents' carefully maintained expressions wavered. Even Vivian's perfect mask began to crack. This isn't real, she stammered, her voice trembling for the first time. You're manipulating. I am showing the truth, I said, my voice calm, measured, and final. Every detail, every intent, every action. Your performance is over. The judge leaned forward, his eyes sharp. Do you intend to maintain control of the estate as your grandmother intended? Yes, I replied. I intend to protect the estate from anyone who would destroy it for personal gain, even if that person is my own family. Vivian's face twisted, rage and panic flashing in a way no amount of practice could mask. I could see her calculating, searching for a way to recover, to spin this narrative back into her favor. But I was one step ahead. I had documented everything, the slashed artwork, her threats, her confession, even her plan to poison my reputation. The truth was irrefutable. The judge's gavel hit the block. Silence filled the courtroom, heavy and suffocating, until it cracked under the weight of reality. Vivian's eyes darted, desperate, knowing her plan had failed. Our parents stared at me, confusion and guilt written across their faces. They had been manipulated, yes, but only because they wanted to believe in the golden child, in success, in appearances. They hadn't expected me to see through it. I let the silence stretch. Every breath I took, every blink, was a reminder, fear had no power here. Rage had no power here. Strategy did. Calm was my weapon. Observation my shield. Vivian tried one last maneuver, a final desperate lie, but it fell flat, her words drowned by the evidence. I had turned their performance against them. The golden child, the obedient parents, they had been caught in their own trap. As the courtroom emptied, I realized something deeper. Betrayal is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, slow, carefully orchestrated. And survival isn't about retaliation, it's about patience, clarity, and the ability to wait for the right moment. Walking out, I knew this was only the beginning. The estate was safe for now, but the war for truth, for justice, was far from over. And when the next move came, I would be ready. Calm, vigilant, and unbreakable. The trap had been revealed, but the story wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. The estate was quiet, but the silence no longer comforted me. Every hallway, every shadowed corner, felt like a witness to what had just happened. I walked through the Marlowe mansion, my grandmother's words echoing in my mind, observed the truth behind every smile. Survival belongs to those who see what others cannot. It wasn't over. Vivian's defeat in court was only a temporary victory. I knew my family's ambition ran deeper than mere inheritance, they craved control, power, the illusion of success. And they would not stop until every piece of me had been broken or claimed. I retreated to my grandmother's hidden study, a room even I had rarely entered. Dusty tomes and private letters were scattered across the shelves, illuminated by shafts of winter sunlight. As I read, I discovered the extent of Vivian's plotting. She had been laundering money through shell companies, redirecting estate funds, and sabotaging my projects for years. Every act of concern from my parents had been carefully orchestrated, designed to keep me obedient, to keep me compliant. I felt anger rise, but I swallowed it. Anger was predictable, fear was exploitable. I needed strategy. Calm. Precision. Over the next days, I turned the estate into a fortress of observation. Every room became a station of awareness. Cameras disguised as antique mirrors, microphones hidden in chandeliers, and documents meticulously catalogued. I wasn't just protecting property, I was protecting the truth. The truth about my family, about their deceit, about my own resilience. Then came the first real test. Vivian arrived under the guise of reconciliation, carrying a basket of flowers and a practiced smile. "Evelyn," she cooed, "let's put this behind us. The estate, the family, it's time to heal." I didn't move from my chair. I didn't respond immediately. Every gesture was measured. My silence became a mirror, reflecting her intentions back at her. She shifted, uncertainty flickering across her face. "I just want peace," she continued, softer now. But I knew her. This wasn't peace. This was an audition for forgiveness, a chance to reset the narrative. I stood slowly, letting my presence fill the room. Every camera, every hidden recorder captured her words, her tone, her attempt to manipulate. "Peace," I said, voice calm, almost gentle. "Is that what you call destroying my work, lying to the authorities, and trying to rewrite reality to suit your desires?" Vivian froze. She hadn't expected confrontation, not calm, not direct, not unflinching. My parents appeared behind her, expressions carefully crafted, but I could see through them now. They were still puppets, even if they didn't realize it. Over the next week, I orchestrated the estate's transformation. The ruined canvases were preserved, displayed as proof of what had been attempted against me. Each room became a sanctuary for women who had been manipulated, betrayed, or silenced. Paintings became lessons in resilience. Every hidden corner told a story of survival. I wasn't just reclaiming the estate, I was reclaiming agency, authority, and narrative. And then came the unexpected. Vivian's attempts at subtle sabotage, misplaced documents, minor vandalism, were all captured. I had anticipated them, leaving bait and evidence in strategic places. Every move she made strengthened my position. I walked through the halls one evening, watching sunlight catch the dust motes in the air, and felt something I hadn't in months: control. The estate no longer belonged merely to my grandmother's memory or the inheritance she left, it belonged to me, a symbol of vigilance and endurance. I knew the final confrontation was approaching. Vivian would try again, our parents would falter, and the stakes would rise. But I had prepared. Every act of deceit had been documented. Every attempt at manipulation anticipated. The stage was set for truth to triumph. And as I stood in the attic studio, looking at the slashed portrait of my grandmother, I realized the final lesson she had left me: survival isn't about reacting to chaos. It's about becoming the calm at the center of it, the observer, the strategist. Only then can betrayal be turned into proof, weakness into strength, and threat into survival. The estate had become more than a home, it was my sanctuary, my weapon, my statement. And Vivian, like the others who underestimated me, would soon learn that truth, patience, and observation were far more dangerous than rage or deceit. The day of reckoning arrived with the sun low over the Marlowe estate, casting long shadows through the grand windows of the dining hall. Vivian and my parents were already there, faces carefully composed, smiles painted on like masks. They believed they had rehearsed every word, every glance, every measure of deceit. But they had forgotten one crucial detail: I had been watching, listening, and waiting. The table was set immaculately, silver glinting under the chandelier, crystal glasses catching the light. It looked like a scene from a magazine, a perfect family, gathered for reconciliation. But I knew better. I didn't come for pleasantries. I came as a witness. As my mother, pale and anxious, poured the wine, I noticed the subtle scent, sweet, almost bitter. It wasn't poison. It was an attempt at influence, a signal meant to test me, to see if I would falter. I drank slowly from a small decanter I carried for myself, pretending to sip from the wine, letting every movement seem natural. Vivian began immediately, her tone soft and rehearsed. Evelyn, we've made mistakes. We didn't see how far this went. We want to start over. I tilted my head, voice calm and measured. Start over. Is that what you call plotting, framing, and destroying my life? Her eyes flicked to my mother, searching for backup. My mother's gaze dropped, caught between fear and loyalty. My father's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his cufflinks. Every gesture, every twitch, every sigh was recorded. Hidden cameras and microphones captured the truth that no performance could erase. They tried to regain control, softening their words, apologizing, pleading. We just wanted to protect you, my mother whispered. We thought Vivian was struggling. I let them speak. Calm, silent observation was my weapon. I didn't interrupt. I let their confession grow, layered over their guilt and fear. Every word, every hesitation, every carefully chosen expression was catalogued in my mind and on tape. Then came Vivian's final act of desperation. She leaned forward, voice sharp, eyes calculating. Evelyn, you don't understand. Everything we did, it was for the family's legacy. For the estate, for the name, for us. I smiled, not with warmth, but with clarity. The only legacy here is deception. The truth has been documented. Your performance, your manipulation, your threats, they are all on record. The shift was immediate. Their faces fell. Panic replaced poise. Every carefully constructed mask shattered. They had underestimated patience, observation, and strategy. The golden child, the devoted parents, they had been exposed by calm, evidence, and truth. I pressed a button in my pocket. A screen flickered to life, showing Vivian destroying my grandmother's portrait, the paint splattered like blood across the floor. The officers I had alerted earlier were now watching live feeds, ready to intervene if necessary. Vivian's plan had collapsed completely. The judge had been notified of all recordings and documents. Within hours, legal measures confirmed what I already knew: the estate was secure, the threats neutralized, and my family's manipulations fully revealed. Vivian lost any claim, my parents faced legal consequences for their complicity, and I finally had the freedom I had fought for months to secure. Walking through the halls that evening, I felt the weight lift from the estate. Each damaged painting, each hidden recorder, each documented conversation now stood as a testament, not just to victory, but to survival, vigilance, and clarity. I paused in the attic studio, looking at the slashed portrait of my grandmother. I hadn't restored it. I wouldn't. Its damage was proof, evidence of what had been attempted against me. And in its broken beauty, I saw my own resilience reflected. The estate had transformed. From a battlefield of deceit and manipulation, it had become a sanctuary for women who had been silenced, controlled, or threatened. Art became therapy, observation became empowerment, and truth became a shield. I learned something invaluable that day: betrayal is never loud. It's quiet, calculated, and patient. And survival isn't about strength, rage, or anger, it's about calm, clarity, and strategy. Those who wait, watch, and record always have the advantage. As the sun dipped behind the estate, casting the final shadows of the day across the halls, I understood that I had finally reclaimed more than property. I had reclaimed myself, my agency, and my story. The Marlowe legacy, once a weapon against me, was now my tool to empower, to preserve, and to protect. And to anyone listening, watching, or learning from this story, always observe. Always anticipate. And never, ever let appearances dictate the truth. Comment where you're watching from, and share your thoughts. How would you survive if the people closest to you became your greatest threat?